right, hey, Vikings fans, welcome in to another episode of the Skol Hop. I'm Evan.
And I'm Austin.
We're just a couple of dudes from Iowa. We like drinking beer. We like talking about the Vikings.
Yeah, we do. And we're continuing the trend.
Yes, we are.
Maybe the listeners or the few that we have hate this mystery beer segment. I love it. I have a lot of fun with it. I think you like it too. So if you hate it, I'm sorry. We're going to keep doing it. If you love it, you're welcome.
I've got a little something special for this too.
Was that just a hint?
Yeah.
At the name?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess that wouldn't make any sense either because... Anyways, episode 41, Evan.
Episode 41,
We've been doing this. So it's over a year.
Over
episode
a year,
41.
Yep.
You got running back Dave Osborne, who wore 41 for the Vikings in the 60s and 70s.
Way back before our time.
Yeah, I never saw him. If I've seen him, it's been highlights that I've forgotten about. But I don't want to disrespect him. He had some decent stats and was one of the OG Vikings. So, and then a little bit later on, you had Charles Gordon, a defensive back who returned kicks.
And snapped his own ankle.
Yeah, well, right before.
I guess he didn't snap it himself. Someone else helped him, but
and I didn't realize until we just watched that clip that it was against the Packers.
Yep.
So the stinky, evil people from across the border, they broke our decent kick returner's ankle, and it was pretty gruesome. So if you ever have a chance, just Google Charles Gordon ankle, and you'll just see that pretty high quality slow-mo video of his ankle just snapping a little bit. So
brutal.
Thoughts and prayers, Charles Gordon. But then recently, Anthony Harris.
Yeah,
he's franchise tagged by the Vikings after a few good years. I think he was undrafted. I might be wrong on that, but I think he was undrafted. And then franchise tagged, and in his franchise tag year, he kind of sucked it up a little bit for the Vikings, but bounced around a couple other teams, and I don't know if he's on a team right now.
One of these days we'll get a stat kid who can just look all these things up for us.
We'll just throw it off to little Jimmy, like, Jimmy, what's the stats on this? And then at the end, he's going to be like, hey, guys, we got some corrections here. 10 minutes ago, Evan, you said this. It was wrong. Austin, you said this. You were right because you're always right. But yeah, someday.
And then he'll go on to host his own major show like Tony Reale did.
Under the Skol Hop umbrella, we're just an empire.
You know Tony Reale's story, right? Mm-hmm. He was the stat guy for Pardon the Interruption.
Okay. And
then he left PTI to go on to do Around the Horn. And he's been doing Around the Horn forever.
Oh, that makes sense. You are way more into... You're more knowledgeable about ESPN than I am.
I love those two shows because they're on when I get home from work, and that's just what I do when I get home from work.
The most I ever watched ESPN is when we were in college, and we had the dorm room, channels and everything.
Cable package.
And that's just... We were guys in a dorm room. That's all that was on was ESPN. Yep. Ever since, I watch all of YouTube, so... Check us out on YouTube. If you're not watching us on YouTube, you're missing out on a good portion of the experience. You can watch us on Spotify too, and I don't know anywhere else they could watch us. Maybe a clip on TikTok. But either way, I digress. Episode 41. We have... Is this version 4.0 of the mystery beer?
Yeah, I think this is our fourth episode in a row where we have wrapped the beer in tinfoil. I brought the beer this week, and like I said, I've got something special up my sleeve for this mystery beer reveal. It's going to be fun.
Before we get to that, I do want to give a shout out. I'm repping the t-shirt.
Yeah, you are.
I want to give a shout out to very good friends of the show, Big Top Ventures. They're our sponsors. They've been with us through thick and thin since... I don't know, in the episode 20s or so. They've been with us for a while, and we love them. But yeah, give them a shout out. They can get you guys a really, really, really good price, maybe the best rate possible on any Mexican and Jamaican all-inclusive resort. Maybe not any, but enough that you'll enjoy a good time. So if you're thinking about taking a Caribbean vacation to an all-inclusive in Mexico or Jamaica, give them a call, or I guess really email them, and we'll put it down like we alluded to last week. Shoot them an email at bigtopventuresllc@gmail.com. And just let them know you're interested in going on a Mexican or Jamaican all-inclusive trip, and they will hook you up with the best price possible. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
All right, you ready for this?
I'm ready. So are we just going to...
Let's pour them up.
Okay. All right.
Let's pour them up first. And
I'm so excited.
Those are full.
Yeah, that's good. I almost want to just smell it right now.
I just totally spilled all over.
All over the sound equipment?
No.
Okay, good.
Just the bar.
All right.
It's meant to take on a little liquid every now and then.
It's like a seasoning. You know,
pretty sure I have some paper towels, but we'll just use the shirt.
Skol.
It's all good. Skol. All right, so go ahead and take a sip. I'll take a sip too. We'll skol.
So just right off the bat, it's darker, but it's not a thick. You can see through it, but it is a darker color, a slight amber. I'll say a slight amber. So let's skol it up and give it a try. Ooh, that is good. That's got a very pronounced flavor.
So I'd like to read you a riddle that I composed. This might be
English teacher over here.
This might be ridiculously corny, but
hey, if not corny, what are we doing?
I was bored and I was like, let's write a riddle.
All right, let's hear it, Ev.
All right, here we go. Every week we drink some beer, and this week is no different. Our beer this week is nothing short of magnificent. There's a place up north that you and I know well, but only if you guess correct will I ever tell. Let's start with style. One might say that I'm boring, but I know what I like, so sue me for not exploring. I like IPAs and I like a good lager, but my taste in beer is no shocker. It's defined by its color. In fact, that's the name. I'd like to think that this beer has some fame. Hopefully you have the type. Now on to the brewery. I'm quite certain.
I love this so much, Evan.
Can't keep it straight anymore. All right. Let me
keep
start.
going. Keep going. I'm quite certain.
I got to pause for a drink.
All right. It's an amber, by the way.
You're right.
Okay.
Good job.
Anyways, keep going.
Hopefully you have the type, which you do. Now on to the brewery. I'm quite certain this place is nothing new to you or me. At this place, there's no such thing as switching gears. Just pull up a chair and grab some friends and beers. So here we are on our Humble Vikings podcast, reminiscing on a place from days long past. I hope that you won't Ctrl-Alt-Delete this half-baked rhyme. Surprisingly, it did take me quite some time. But have no fear, the end is near. I hope you enjoy this. Do you know what this is?
It is a SingleSpeed beer.
It is.
And I think you said the name of it.
I alluded to the name of it.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Is it? I'm picturing it. Is it called Ctrl-Alt-Delete?
It's called Ctrl-Alt-Beer.
Ah, I like it. I have not had this one yet. I really enjoyed your whimsical, your story. It wasn't really a riddle. It was more of telling it what it is, but in a very entertaining and fun way. Good job going out of your comfort zone on that.
I'm an English teacher,
yeah.
It wasn't necessarily way outside of my
It reminded
zone.
me of something you'd hear in The Hobbit, like or something like that.
I was inspired by the episode of How I Met Your Mother.
Oh, the rhyming episode?
Where they rhymed the whole time.
That was a solid episode. If you like that show, you know what episode he's talking about. I know what you're talking about. I have not had this beer. It's a very good. It is an amber. Like, it's not one of those where you're getting a hint of flavor. It is a full flavored amber beer. Although, like I said earlier, you can see through it. It's not a thick one. It's enjoyable. I like this. I definitely will try this again. Evan, you have turned me into a 1A and 1B. So the IPAs are 1A and the ambers are 1B.
And I would agree, and I would say for me, this is 1A, and a good IPA is 1B. So here we are. It's got a rich yet crisp malt character, fun cherry esters. I don't know what esters mean, but it sounds fancy. And floral and spicy hop notes.
I like it.
It's really good. I like amber, and I like this, and I like the fact that it comes from Cedar Falls, Waterloo.
It does. That area means a lot to us. It's the home of our alma mater. You stayed there for another decade after we were done. I came home right away, but we like that area. We love SingleSpeed. I liked your note in your poem riddle in your masterpiece there about how we don't have to change gears. Immediately I knew it was a SingleSpeed right there.
I wasn't trying to be super obvious.
Yeah,
I was trying to be clever.
No, it was nice. It was fun. That will absolutely show up on TikTok. So
I'll publish my writing in the comment section below.
There we go.
If you have any tips, if you'd like to correct my grammar, or if you have a better rhyme, please let me know. I don't claim to be any sort of poet whatsoever.
We should partner with SingleSpeed and put that poem on the back of the T-shirt.
That's a good idea. Actually.
Yeah, there you go. All right, I liked it, and I can't wait to give a full-fledged, honest opinion after a couple more.
Yeah, sounds good. I already added another one to my
Yeah, I should probably do that as well, just to not disrupt the rest of the episode.
Well, while you're doing that, we can transition into our first talking point.
Yeah, we got a few today.
Yeah, so another free agent signing for the Vikings this last week.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Tonyan, former Packer and former Bear.
Yeah.
And wasn't he like a practice squad with the Lions? He's kind of made a tour of the NFC North.
Yeah, he's one of very few people in the world to be able to say that he has signed contracts with all 4 NFC North teams. Yeah, he was a practice squad member with the Lions in 2017. I don't know how long he was with them, but obviously just never made the 53-man roster. But also in that same season, he signed on the 53-man roster with the Packers. Played a few years there. His best season was in 2020, the COVID year. He had 586 receiving yards, which for me, that's like the tight end version of 1,000 yards for me. Of course, you get the tight ends like a Kelsey. On good years, you get Hawkinson, where they will flirt with 1,000 yards, maybe even get a little bit more. But for like your regular good tight end, not your elite tight end, but your regular good tight end, 500 yards and a handful of touchdowns, that is the good year for them. In my eyes, at least. So, yeah, 2020 he had 586 yards, 11 touchdowns with the bad guys. Played last year with the Bears, and now he might be Nick Muse's enemy right now. It might be one or the other for those guys to make the roster.
So you've got the tight end room listed out here.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've got TJ Hawkinson, who is the proverbial starter when he's healthy.
Oh yeah, he is the second or third receiving option on the team, regardless of position.
Yep,
when healthy.
But he was quoted saying there's no timetable right now for his return, and I think it's been kind of widely stated that he might end up on the physically unable to perform list to start the season.
That kind of came out today in the last handful of days. That I think it was Ben Gessling pretty much said, he expects TJ to be on the PUP list, which that's like a mini IR to begin the season. That's an automatic 6 games or 6 weeks. I think that's an important designation, especially this year for the Vikings. But I think it's a 6-week mandatory. Like you can't play. And of course, week 6 for the Vikings this year is their bye week. It's after the London game. So if that's true, and if we can also assume TJ is going to come back fully healthy after that, which of course we don't know yet if he will be on the PUP list, but let's just make it easy on ourselves and assume that. But if that's true, he'll be back week 7 against... who is that against? Oh, against the Lions. I wasn't even trying to do a thing right there. But against his former team, and of course, Joseph Kirby, whatever his name is, the guy that cheap shot injured him. So that could be an interesting storyline to follow early midseason. For
sure. So he's obviously the number 1 tight end when he's back and when he's healthy. After that, you've got Oliver, Munt, and Muse, and then Tonyan. And then you've got a couple of... Were these guys unsigned? Trey Knox and Sammy's Reyes?
So I might be wrong on this. I think Trey Knox was a UDFA from just a few weeks ago, or from the draft. And then Sammy, however you say his name, I'm so sorry, Reyes, he's been in the league 1 or 2 years, but I don't know that he's ever made a roster. So those guys are probably, you're looking at practice squad, or if they can impress in the preseason and training camp, they might be a fringe guy to knock off probably Muse for a roster spot. But yeah, I think it's going to be, to start off the season, your tight end 1, you're looking at Oliver and then Mund and then either Muse or Tonyan if they keep 3.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I think a signing like that, especially with his NFC North reputation that precedes him, that's kind of a splash for the Vikings to pick up a guy like that.
A little bit. He kind of reminds me a little bit, because last week we talked about free agents that are out there that the Vikings could probably sign for a smart choice. And we talked about Hunter Renfrow, who had a decent season in 2021 as a wide receiver, but then he's kind of not really shown up ever since then. But he would still be kind of a flashy signing at this point in the year. Tonyan kind of, to me, speaks a little bit to a tight end version of what a Renfrow signing could be. He had a flashy season in 2020 and hasn't really done much ever since, much to speak about, but obviously there's something there. So, yeah, it could be, a nice, interesting signing. He might catch a few touchdowns, or maybe this is the last time we ever talk about him. You never know. That's kind of where it is at this point.
For sure. So definitely an interesting acquisition for the Vikings, and could pay some big dividends, especially with Hawkinson out for the early part of the season. And, I think those four, Oliver, Munt, Muse, and Tonyan, are fighting for those roster spots for sure.
And honestly, even with Hawkinson out, like you just said, I think the tight end room is in a good spot. Obviously with Hawkinson, who you might get some pushback, but you could argue is in the upper echelon eliteness of tight ends in the NFL right now when healthy. But even without a Hawkinson, a room with Oliver, Munt, and then Muse or Tonyan is a good tight end room. Yeah. That's one that you're not, you're just probably not getting a Pro Bowler out of there, but you're okay with that room heading into the season. Yeah,
for sure. And what's hard to quantify is their blocking success. I know that there are some advanced stats out there, and we don't necessarily have access to those, so we don't pay those subscriptions to get the cool things.
Someday we'll get the big boy sponsors, and Big Top will still be around for us. But someday we'll get the big ones and be able to spend frivolously on those licenses. But
I think that will be an important feature of that tight end position is can they run block?
Yeah.
We need a rushing game desperately.
And importantly to that point, Josh Oliver, that's what he's known for, is being one of the upper echelon blockers in the tight end realm. So I'm okay. I'm not freaking out about the tight end room yet. Even if Hawkinson were to miss 8 games, you don't like that because that's a good chunk of his prime NFL playing career. But yeah, it's almost like let him sit, let him be healthy. This room can patch it over until he gets back.
You have an interesting little note
I knew you'd like that.
That week 7 could be the best potential place for J.J. McCarthy to make his first NFL start.
Yeah, so in the Vikings world, we've kind of transitioned from this quarterback talking point. At first it was, man, Kirk is playing like a fringe MVP player. This is awesome. We might do something. And then Achilles. And then, man, he might not. They got to re-sign him, right? They might draft a guy, but they got to sign Kirk. And then he signs with the Falcons. And then it was full force. Okay, we've got Sam Darnold as a bridge, but then they have to trade the farm to get up to 3 to get Drake May or J.J. McCarthy. And that was the talking point for a while until, of course, the draft. And here comes J.J. And now I think the talking point is, when does J.J. start? Because I think it's understood J.J. probably, he's not QB1 right now, and I don't think he should be. And I think we both have our own opinions on when he should start and when he could start. I think you let Sam Darnold ride until not only Sam Darnold, not just when he loses the job, because if Sam Darnold loses the job before JJ is ready, then you got to throw Nick Mullins or whoever else is in there as a patchwork QB. But I think JJ shouldn't start until he's ready. But one nice little built-in spot in the season is after week 5, the London game. After that, you get your bye in week 6. It's early enough. Maybe the sky hasn't started falling yet on the season, but if Sam Darnold hasn't proven to be good enough to keep the job, and if JJ has proven to be good enough to get an opportunity, I think that week 7 game after the bye is a built-in perfect, not too early, but early enough spot for JJ to get his first start. And it's all the better if TJ Hawkinson is healthy and ready to go that game. So that could be a fun week. against the Lions that week.
I'm going to make a hot take, and anytime I make a hot take,
I'm excited.
Usually crashes and burns.
You're going to hit sometime, right?
But it's all right. I don't care. I got nothing to lose. You can rip me apart in the comments. You won't offend me. I think JJ should start week 1.
And if
I'm in that camp.
If he's ready, if he wins the job, absolutely. I don't want him to start until he wins the job. That's my stance. And if that's week 1, awesome. I'm going to trust the coaches to think, okay, he's won the job.
I'm confident enough to say that he'll be ready once training camp is over. The preseason will tell us a lot. I think we're going to see, this will be an interesting preseason for Vikings quarterback.
2 games, yeah.
Because we haven't seen the starter play much, if anything.
Mm-hmm.
Kirk hasn't really played in a preseason game.
And he hasn't needed to.
He hasn't needed to, but I mean, we're just not. We're used to those preseason games being proving grounds for second and third string quarterbacks. That's what they are. Like, all right, go out and win the second string job, or go out and win that third string job, or you're not good enough. We're gonna put you on the practice squad, or nope, sorry, you're cut, you're done.
And every position's backup, or the number 2 at that position, is extremely important. I think we saw it firsthand that QB2 is a very important position.
Yes.
We saw it last year when Kirk went down. So
for sure.
Yeah, I think we can both agree that we want JJ to start early and as early as possible. I think I'm just willing to let this season be a fun one to not care much about if they don't win a ton of games, and just to watch the progression for hopefully JJ to flourish into a good quarterback without having to be thrown to the wolves way too early.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I think he should start week 1. I think that matchup is actually really interesting because it's on the road at New York, which New York hasn't been great.
Yeah, but
lately.
We said the same thing about the Buccaneers last year.
True. But you've got Daniel Jones, who just signed this big contract. And, I mean, to some extent, I think he's kind of the, like, this will sound terrible, but he's kind of the laughingstock of the league, I think, because he's getting paid a lot, and he really hasn't proven that he's worth that much. And so I think JJ's got nothing to lose if he's the starter, and I don't think Kevin O'Connell or Kwesi have anything to lose either by throwing him in there game 1 and just saying, all right, go out and let's see what happens.
Yeah.
The tough part is coming home and playing the Niners and playing the Texans in week 2 and 3. Those are going to be tough games, and then to turn around and go play on the road at Green Bay, that's tough as well. Yep. Before you take an international road trip to London to play the Jets, and Aaron Rodgers, presumably he's healthy.
Yeah, he might play another 4 plays and then get injured again. So
I saw a tweet that said Aaron Rodgers' Achilles has the chance to do the funniest thing ever by snapping again 4 plays into the season on, I think it's primetime. I think they have a primetime game week 1.
Yeah, it's the second year in a row they open up Monday Night Football.
Yeah, and they have 6 primetime games in the first 11 weeks of the season.
And the Vikings have 2 primetime games. And I think that counts the London game, which is at 8:30 in the morning. US.
Prime time. Drinking my coffee.
Yeah, I think we can both agree we want JJ to start
sooner rather than later.
Yeah, it's just I'm going to throw my own caveat is just don't ruin him. Don't Christian Ponder him by throwing him out before he's ready. If you think he can be good, you'll let him cook. And if he never wins the job, at some point you got to throw him out just to see what happens. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's ever going to be a perfect time. This week 7 to me seems like a good opportunity. But again, if he pulls a Russell Wilson and wins the job in training camp, awesome.
What if he pulls a CJ Stroud and leads his team to the playoffs as a rookie?
I don't think anybody would be mad. Ask Texans fans right now if they're mad that CJ Stroud started right away and turned out to be really, really, really good. Like that guy, especially after what they went through with Deshaun Watson and all that fun stuff. But yeah.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to see how that develops, and it's going to be a really interesting pick'em when we get to that too. Given the fact that we don't know what's going to happen at the quarterback position, and that's kind of a big deal when it comes to picking games.
I'll give a little sneak peek for our pick'em episode, which may be next week or 4 weeks from now, whenever we do our coin flip and season prediction on game by game, who wins what. I'm very I'm probably a lot higher on what I think the Vikings can do than a lot of other people in Vikings fanhood right now. I think they can do some stuff.
You're riding the wave of optimism.
I'm optimistic.
Is this the same Austin that picked the games last year?
No, not the same one, but I really think, and I'm still going to try to keep this as a sneak peek, I really think they are better at most positions, and then there's question marks at other positions. I don't think they got drastically worse. I don't think you can prove that the Vikings got drastically worse at any position from last year to this coming year. And obviously quarterback is the first one that you talk about because we just don't know with JJ.
Yep, I agree. Well, speaking of positions and position groups specifically, there's a pretty good article written by friend of the show, Dustin Baker.
Yeah, so we like this a lot. Dustin, keep writing stuff so that we can keep crediting you with whole segments of our podcast so that we can talk about your articles.
Well, and they give us great stuff to talk about. So obviously we're big fans of Vikings Territory. So if you haven't checked them out yet, head over to vikingsterritory.com. That's not a sponsor. That's just something you should do because if you're a Vikings fan, it's good stuff. It's good content. And we read that stuff regularly. That's just kind of part of our daily and weekly intake of Vikings information. And it's turned out to be really good fodder for conversation on the show.
Absolutely.
So all that to say, we've got this article entitled 3 Worst Parts of the Vikings Roster Currently, or kind of moving into this next season.
Yeah.
And so Dustin has outlined 3 different position groups. And I think, if I remember right, this kind of made me laugh. In kind of let me see if I can find it quick. Where was it? There it is. Kind of like the preview before you click on the article. The subtitle is, if you're looking for mushy spots on the Vikings roster, these are those.
I can hear Dustin saying that. If you're looking for, I can hear him use those words. But yeah, that makes sense. So he's looking at the weakest spots where the Vikings could use a lot of help. And this kind of ties in a little bit with the article we talked about last week where it was free agents the Vikings could sign to patch up some weak spots. So this one is really just looking at what are the weak spots. He identifies 3. What's the first one he talks about? Also, they're in order of least weak to most weak, I think is what he says. So what's the first one he lists out?
So the first one he lists out is the wide receiver group, actually, which might seem surprising because we have arguably the best wide receiver in the league, Justin Jefferson.
I don't think it's an argument. I think he is the best. And then you had a guy with an amazing rookie year that gets overshadowed because his name's not Justin Jefferson. Addison had 900-plus yards as a rookie and a handful of touchdowns, and half of that season was without a Pro Bowl-level quarterback.
And without JJ.
Yeah, I mean, he was the wide receiver one for a while.
He carried the load for a while JJ was out too. So you've got a great 1 and 2 in the wide receiver room. That number 3 position, I think, is a really mushy spot on the roster, to borrow the term from Dustin. And we talked about it a little bit last week, like, well, maybe Hunter Renfrow could be a good free agent signing. You know, he's still available. You've got Michael Thomas listed here.
Yeah.
He's got to be getting old, right?
Yeah, I think Michael Thomas is almost to the point that it would be by name alone if he gets signed anywhere else. But Renfrow and Thomas are guys that Dustin specifically names in this article. Please go read that article. It's a really good one.
He's not that old, actually. He's only 31.
Yeah, but he's had some injury stuff and enough injury stuff that I don't think he's the same player he was at his peak.
Probably true.
And that's Michael Thomas, of course. But either way, I think he would still be a better option than like an undrafted free agent right now. But yeah, after JJ... and after Jordan Addison, especially with TJ Hawkinson down, you don't have a ton of good receiving threats. So yeah, if they can shut down JJ and one-on-one and get good and shut down Addison, the Vikings don't have a lot of guys to throw to, which is not something you like to hear when you're talking about a journeyman quarterback coming in, and trying to ultimately talk about a rookie quarterback coming in and showing that he can develop and be good with no weapons, really. Which is crazy to say no weapons when JJ is on the field. But yeah, that's a scary spot right now. I will say, I read another article from today or yesterday or recently from, and I'm going to butcher his name. I've never heard it spoken out loud. Will Raggetts. I've said his name on the podcast. He writes for Sports Illustrated. He had an article where he pointed out the guaranteed money given to all of the Vikings undrafted free agents, which I didn't know that the UDFA contracts, it's like the same contract given to every guy. It's just teams have some leeway on how much guarantees they can give to a guy to entice them to sign with them. So it's like a 3-year, just shy of $2 million or just shy of $3 million deal, and then teams can decide to give more or less guaranteed monies. But one of the guys this year, undrafted free agents, Jashawn Jones, who I'd never heard of, apparently the Vikings gave him $235,000 in guarantees for his rookie undrafted free agent contract. So maybe they like what they see, and maybe he could be a dark horse guy to come in and compete with Brandon Powell for that wide receiver 3 job. I don't know anything about him, even where he went to school, but if the Vikings wanted him that bad to give him that much guaranteed money.
He's a Terrapin. He's from Maryland.
Oh, okay. Hey, well, the last Maryland receiver for the Vikings to join the team post round 4 of the draft turned out pretty good until he wasn't pretty good, and that's, of course, Stephon Diggs.
Until he was a drama queen.
Yeah, but we got the miracle from him, so we'll take it.
Some quick-hitting stats on Jones. He played 48 games between 2018 and 2023 for Maryland, 151 receptions, 2,040 yards, 14 touchdowns. He led Maryland with single-season career highs in receptions, receiving yards, and yards per game in 2023, and he ranked 5th in the Big Ten in each of those 3 categories.
All right.
So there you go.
So a guy to potentially keep an eye out for in OTAs and training camp, just to see, 1, if he makes a team, 2, maybe he makes an impact. The next position Dustin laid out as one of the worst, and this is worse than the wide receivers even, is interior offensive line. And I personally kind of disagree with this a little bit. So he means the starters on the inside of the line, the left guard, the center, and the right guard, which, of course, right now, left guard is Blake Brandel, center is Garrett Bradbury, and right guard is Ed Ingram. What are your thoughts on those guys right off the bat?
I like the second 2, as long as Ed Ingram doesn't step on the quarterback's feet. I think we're good. I think he's a great guy to have there, and Bradbury's just proven to be really steady, and when he's not in the game, it's noticeable.
Oh, yeah.
And I forget who filled in for him.
Austin Schlottman, who is now, I don't know where, he signed somewhere else. I think the Patriots. I'm probably wrong on that, but he's either way.
Well, all that to say, Schlottman wasn't bad. It was just noticeable that Bradbury wasn't in the game, and Kirk, when Bradbury wasn't in the game, seemed lost. Like he didn't, and there's chemistry there. So hopefully Bradbury can develop that chemistry with Darnold or McCarthy, whoever he's snapping the ball to, whoever's touching his butt on a regular basis. But right now, there's only 2 centers on the roster. You've got Bradbury and then Dan Feeney, who's added as a free agent.
Dan Feeney.
His mustache is interesting.
Dude's interesting.
I'm looking at his picture right now. Maybe we make that the thumbnail for this episode.
Well, I'll see what I can do.
Anyways,
Ed Ingram, I think after it kind of correlated with Dalton Reisner starting last season in 23, Ed Ingram really kind of started to turn it around, and you stopped blaming him for bad plays. He started to become less noticeable, which as an offensive lineman, that's a good thing. That means you're not ruining plays. So to me, Ed Ingram seemed to turn it around and start to be good. in Dustin's article, he does kind of mention how when you draft an interior offensive lineman in the first or second round, which Ed Ingram was a second rounder, those guys should be really good because that's pretty high to draft a guy like that, especially not a center. So look for Ed Ingram to potentially take a leap, which he should, especially when you have a continuity in coaching staffs like we do for the first time in a long time. Garrett Bradbury, I was concerned for a while. You can go back and listen to earlier episodes. He had a back injury that kind of derailed 2 seasons ago for him. Mm-hmm. And I was concerned that back injury was essentially a career killer for him. And he missed a game or two in 23, I think, because of a back-ish injury, and I thought, man, we might never see him again. And then he only missed a game or two, and he came back, and we never heard a negative thing about him the rest of the year. I think the knocks on Bradbury are that he's slightly smaller than your average center, so he might get pushed around a little bit, which we did see early in his career. But I think after he's gotten over these injury concerns, he doesn't get pushed around as blatantly as he used to. So I'm a Bradbury fan. I'm an Ingram fan. And then Brandell, we've only ever seen him come in relief. So we don't know too much about him.
And I think this position group becomes not mushy at all and quite solidified, actually, if they just sign Dalton Reisner.
Yeah, or
for the right price, but if they sign Dalton Reisner
or somebody
like him, but I don't know, I'm still like I admitted this last week. I'm very much like I'm attached to the guys, the players, and I have a hard time just watching guys go. Like it was kind of emotional when Kirk Cousins left. Like spent 6 good years with Kirk Cousins under center for the Vikings, and that is kind of a meaningful thing. And so to watch him, leave in free agency and everything that's happened since then has been kind of interesting as well. But anyways, Dalton Reisner, like, man,
the line seemed to do really well once Reisner started coming in.
Yeah, and he's his locker room interviews were great. The energy he had on the sideline was great. The energy he had on the field was great. I know we got a comment earlier this week.
You kind of got ripped apart a little bit in a comment that you'd be a bad GM and it's not about sappiness. And
Yeah. Well, whatever. I don't care.
That's fine. That's all good and dandy. But yeah,
there was one comment, though. There was a different comment that was like, he only has the leg kick and that's it, or something like that.
Oh, yeah, his only highlight was the leg kick. I mean, I think somebody pointed out he was like 41st of all guards in the NFL, which, I mean, that's as good as any starter. That's like middle pack of any starter.
Yeah.
You pointed out last week, I think, he's not as strong of a run blocker. But the line seemed to turn things around once he became a starter. And then here Ezra Cleveland goes and gets a pretty decent contract from the Jaguars, and I admittedly didn't follow Cleveland and see how he did for the Jaguars after he was traded. So I don't know. Obviously well enough to earn a multi-year, tens of $1 million contract. So good for him. But yeah, I'd like to see a Reisner signing or a signing of somebody who at least can come in and start. Like last week we talked about Greg Van Roten. There's got to be somebody out there that can step in for a year. You're not looking for a 10-year guy at this point, and they drafted a couple of guys. I think the guys they drafted there's a center and then a tackle, so not necessarily a guard position, but maybe they're looking for those young guys to come in and earn a spot on the team somewhere. But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you would agree with me in saying I'm less concerned about the interior offensive line than I am about the wide receiver 3 and beyond position.
Yeah, I would agree. I think if I were rewriting the article, which Dustin has his reasons, and we can respect those, I would maybe flip-flop the two. Yeah. I think I would put the interior offensive line as third most mushy, and then the wide receiver 3 position as the second most mushy.
I'd agree. We can call Dustin out on that next time he's on. Just a handful of weeks, I think we've got him coming on.
But I definitely agree with his number 1 most mushy position.
Absolutely.
And that's the defensive tackle position. So right now, the room consists of...
before you say it, I didn't include every name on the list of defensive tackles, but I wrote down at least the names that probably matter at this point.
Yep.
So keep going. Sorry.
Yeah. So the big names are Harrison Phillips, of course, who's another, I just think, wonderful acquisition from the Bills a few seasons ago. He's a Viking through and through. And I hope the guy retires in purple. That'd be fun to see.
Oh yeah.
Jerry Tillery was an off-season free agent acquisition.
Yeah, he feels like a buy low guy.
Yep.
For Kwesi Adofo-Mensah.
Yep.
Former first-round pick, has never really seemed to become what you think a first-round pick should become, but there's something there, and he's not too old, so he and Sam Darnold could be looking at similar roles this year in trying to revive some things in their careers.
And then you have Jonathan Bullard, and correct me if I'm wrong, but he's kind of bounced between like the edge and the interior, has he not?
Yeah,
he's he's played both.
Yeah, and I think we both have a little confusion on what is a defensive tackle in the 3-4 defense, especially the way the Vikings roster has kind of transitioned from 4-3 to 3-4. So I'm not too sure. I think in the 3-4, the defensive tackle is the big dude in the middle, and you really only have one on a given play. But then you get those defensive ends who, in a 3-4, pretty much looks like an outside linebacker, but in a 4-3 is the hand in the dirt on the line.
Yeah,
defensive
and
end.
I'm just used to the Williams wall, two guys
Me
in the
too.
middle, two guys on the outside. Jared Allen just flying out of nowhere, going after the quarterback, and that's what I'm used to. So the 3-4 has definitely been a little bit of an adjustment. And to be fair, Brian Flores doesn't even necessarily conform to. Are you breaking stuff?
I don't know. Something. I put my arm down and something sounded weird. It'd be interesting to see what that sounds like on the recording. But yeah, I'm just not going to put my arm down there anymore. And
now
I'm sure it's fine.
I'm nervous about leaning my arm on.
We're good. I tested it.
All right. What I was saying though was Brian Flores, he keeps you on your toes, and like he'll throw everybody on the line. He'll bring Harrison Smith up and fill the A gap for a second, and then back them all off, and
you get Josh Metellus, who literally at some points has played every position on the defense.
He's
famously.
the Swiss Army knife.
Yeah,
he's been all over the place. So, I mean, I don't know. It's tough to really define. It's tough to put a true like 4-3, 3-4, because it's so variable. It changes, and I mean that's I think the beauty of a defensive coordinator like Brian Flores is you're always keeping the offense, you're always keeping the opposing quarterback on their toes, trying to figure out what they're looking at, what's going on, who's coming at me, who's not, how many guys are in the box, how many aren't. How many guys do we need to account for in blocks? How many are going to drop back in coverage? Like that's the beauty of the system. So anyways, all of that to say, Jonathan Bullard, he's kind of a wild card. He could be inside. I feel like he's played outside though.
Yeah.
And then James Lynch was a big re-sign.
Yeah, he's a recent re-signing. They had cut him and signed somebody else recently, and then re-signed him in the last week or so. He's been with the team for a little while, but never a big splash guy. But maybe he comes in and does something. I'm not too sure. I think I've kind of forgotten about Jaquelin Roy. Draft pick from last season. You never know what guys do after being in the building for a full year, in the system with a very highly touted defensive coordinator. Maybe he comes in and maybe he's a way different guy than he was last year. He never really got on the field last year. That's Jaquelin Roy. So maybe he carves out a nice role for himself in the defense. And then I think the Vikings media team loved to hype up a 7th-round pick, Levi Drake Rodriguez.
Yeah, they did.
Who I've never heard of, but I've seen all the videos now, and his interviews, he looks like the happiest person in the world to be a Viking, and I freaking love that. The draft room videos, which the Vikings posted up a really cool one of all the phone calls and all the conversations, not every detail, but some draft day details. for the war room, and then the phone calls, and the Levi Drake Rodriguez stuff was pretty cool because he, again, is the most excited in the world, and Kwesi seemed very excited to be able to still get that guy and not have to compete in undrafted free agency or somebody else draft him before they could. So you never know. There's some names that could do something, but I agree with Dustin here. It's probably the biggest obvious weakness at this point in the season, above the offensive line or wide receiver threes.
Agreed. And, I mean, Harrison Phillips is a stalwart, I think. I think he's going to be the most consistent and probably the bona fide starter at this point, barring anything unforeseen like injury. Jerry Tillery remains to be kind of seen how he fits. And, of course, the defense as a whole, like we just finished saying, kind of is in flux, and it's going to be interesting to see with some of these new acquisitions how Flores puts them to work. And I don't know. There's a lot of interesting things that will develop, especially during training camp and those early preseason games, I think, with these positions.
Absolutely.
So.
And I kind of joked about it a little bit earlier, but I think I don't see any big changes to these positions or really the roster as a whole between now and the next few weeks. And like I said, Dustin Baker is going to be on in the next few weeks, so we should definitely bring this up to him in this specific article and see what his more longer thought out process of these decisions and why he ranked them where he did. But until then, definitely please go check out that article. It's really good. It doesn't take very long to read. And even if you disagree, you'll see what Dustin's saying and why he's ranking these positions the way he does. So yeah, good stuff from Vikings Territory. So make sure you head over there and check that out.
Yeah, we've got something special coming up here, and you're gonna kind of lead the charge on this because I'm unavailable.
Yeah. So we might have some crossover fans. There's definitely more fans of YouBetcha than there probably are of the Skol Hop at this point. But if you do follow YouBetcha and all of their stuff, they have a subsidiary podcast from YouBetcha Radio. It's called The Double Bogey Show. There's a couple of guys there that talk about golf, and they all seem to be, or a lot of them seem to be Vikings fans. So we've got a really cool interview coming up here that actually we haven't recorded yet. I'm going to do it tomorrow. But I'm going to talk with Tyler and Jared, I think, from the YouBetcha crew about the Vikings. So that's coming up for you guys here in just a few seconds, probably for us tomorrow. But I'm really excited about this. I'm a big fan of YouBetcha. Evan, I know you've seen some of their stuff too. But yeah, this should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Well, I wish I could be there.
Yeah, maybe next time. Maybe it'll be so much fun that they'll want to come on and talk to us all the time, and probably not. But you never know.
Don't screw it up, right?
No pressure whatsoever. So if you guys are listening to this right now, I'm very excited. Not nervous at all because I don't really get nervous. I'm tough like that. I'm Mr. Macho Man. Now I'm a little nervous, but it'll be fun, and I'm really looking forward to it.
All right. Well, Skol to having fun with some fellow Vikings fans.
Yep. After that, we will come back and we'll give our final thoughts and opinions on the Ctrl Bier, or however you want to say it, because it's not spelled B-E-R.
It's a German thing.
Yeah, I like it. So that's coming up a little bit later.
Skol.
All right, welcome in, Skol Hoppers. We already gave you a little bit of an intro, but we're here now that I've got Tyler and Jared here. You know them from YouBetcha, the YouBetcha Radio, Breakfast Ball, the Double Bogey Show, all that fun stuff. And we'll give them a chance to talk about that here towards the end. But welcome in, guys. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Austin.
Absolutely. I was super stoked when you guys said you'd be interested in coming on. I listen to you guys all the time, and obviously from listening to you, you're Vikings fans, you can tell. But you don't really get to talk about the Vikings too much. Usually it's just Tyler complaining about the team, which I feel you there.
Every time we try to talk about the Vikings, we get shut down. No one wants to hear it. Mm-hmm. So I get out as much information as possible in 30 seconds before Ryan or Miles starts barking at me.
You know what? Fight back at them. Just tell them, you know what? Sit down, guys. This is my Vikings corner, and we're gonna rant for a little bit.
We should pitch that, Jared. We should get a Vikings corner once a month in the fall.
Yeah,
They give us 5 minutes to just get whatever we want out.
And you're already sitting in the corner, so why not make it Vikings?
Perfect.
There you go. There you
Hell
go.
yeah.
We'll send you a little Skol hop flag that you can put in the back. Some plug there a little bit. You don't even have to say anything about it. Just
give me one of those flags. I'll put it up in the breakfast ball studio somewhere.
We'll see what we can do.
Okay.
All right. Well, here's your chance. You guys get to rant about the Vikings. We're all diehard fans, but there's a lot of complaining that we can do. So let's air that out right here. First off, for both of you guys, how do you guys become Vikings fans? Is it a super cool story? Is it really boring? What is it? How are you Vikings fans?
You go ahead, Jared.
Just through my folks. Pretty much my first memories is just watching Vikings with my dad and brother and mom, and kind of just I just kind of got into it that way, just through my folks.
Yeah. Hey, that's awesome. That's the purest kind of fan right there. Just know nothing else.
Yep.
What about you, Tyler?
Sort of similar, except my dad was trying to force me to be a Vikings fan, but I was one of those kids that would just kind of do the opposite of what they were told. So I didn't become a Packers fan. I took it so far that I just don't like football because you're trying to force me into this so much. And then I started playing football and I really loved it. And it was like, well, I have to be a Vikings fan or I'll get kicked out of the house. So I've been
when you officially decide, like, what's the first year that you remember? Okay, I'm a Vikings fan now, and I remember rooting for the team.
The first year I remember actually caring.
Mm-hmm.
And like being devastated when inevitably the season was over was the AP rushing record year.
Oh, okay.
Would that have been 07? Yep.
Or 07?
Yep.
Oh, his like single game record or the MVP year?
The single game.
Okay.
So, yeah, it would have been his rookie season, correct? Yes.
Yep.
You
got it.
Yep.
Yeah, I would have been in 6th or 7th grade right when I started playing football, so that makes sense.
That's the perfect time to really start liking a sports team. Also, it's terrible because when you're a kid, you don't know how heartbroken you're going to get for the rest of your life.
Well, and I was
you?
spoiled. I was spoiled with AP. I just thought that all running backs were going to be that good.
Right.
Well, we kind of have been spoiled as Vikings fans since then.
True.
With the game, like not until Dalvin left. Last year was really the first time we had like, oh, this is what
we did have the Toby Gerhart year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he was never really the starter, was he? He was always right behind AP.
Well, it was him. So the year after AP left, it was like a running back by committee with Gerhart, Asiata, and who else?
Nat Asiata. That dude just scored touchdowns. He was off.
Give it to him on the one.
Yep.
There was one other person.
I don't think Gerhart was on that team.
I'm pretty sure he was because then he started for Jacksonville the next year.
Right.
Yeah.
Who was that?
Was it Jerick McKinnon before he left for San Francisco?
Potentially.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
I like how it's we're sitting at a bar right now. We're just like, where did he play?
We're just naming old players.
We literally did that last week on the Skol Hop with Jimmy Kleinsasser.
We
had a whole segment talking about Jim Kleinsasser. It was awesome.
Awesome Jim Kleinsasser story for you. So my dad played football at UND. He had me super young. So my dad was a freshman in college when I was born. And him and Jimmy played together and became good friends. So my dad was an outside linebacker and Jimmy is a tight end. They were going against each other in drills all the time. So Jimmy
your poor dad.
Yeah. So Jimmy was at my baptism when I was like 1 or 2. I don't remember how old I was, obviously, but they became friends in college, and then Jimmy Kleinsasser was at the baptism. So
outside of that,
what's that?
Have you ever met Kleinsasser, or was
outside of that? That was it. No, they buddies in college, and then my dad obviously didn't go pro, so they kind of lost touch.
I don't know. I've only ever heard awesome things about Kleinsasser and how he's like a total normal dude. So that's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. So what are you guys' favorite Vikings memories? Do you have any big highlights that stand out? Even if it's just, I jumped around in the Minneapolis Miracle. Like what's your favorite memory?
I mean, for me, that's it. I mean, I was living in my college house. There was 5 of us, and every single one of us was diehard. and we were jumping and hugging, and there were tears. But I know that's the basic answer, so I did prepare like a second answer for you.
Oh, okay.
First year the bank opened, what was that, 2016, Jared? 2016. My dad bought us tickets, me, my buddy, and my dad, and we are 3 inches from the ceiling of US Bank Stadium. So we were way the hell up there, and it was a kickoff, and while the ball was in the air, my dad goes, Cordarrelle's going to run this back. It's against the Cardinals, and he ran it back. And I had goosebumps from the prediction. The crowd was going absolutely nuts, and you could see everything develop from that high up. That was just a super cool moment. So that was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, US Bank's really good for those viewing angles. There's really not a bad seat in the house.
Yeah, that the cliche phrase, but it's true.
Yeah. All right, Jared, what's your favorite memory?
I think it was been the 2004 wild card game against the Packers.
Okay.
That was
the Dustin Act game.
Yep, that was the Moss Moon in the crowd game.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then during that year, the Vikings lost to the Packers twice. I think it was 4-31. They both lost, and then they went to Lambeau and beat them
in the playoffs. Hell yeah.
That was the year, because they played the Packers like the last game of the season, and then also in the wild card round the next week. So it was that seems to happen a little bit more and more now.
Because that happened in 2012. We had a win in against the Packers with Ponder, and then Ponder crushed his hand, and we started Joe Webb in the Ice Bowl.
Yeah, do you remember that game? The first drive, Joe Webb looked like he was going to rush the team to victory, and then they stopped letting him rush around, and it was embarrassing.
It was.
It's like they only scheduled like 3 Joe Webb plays and then just abandoned that.
Yeah. Like, all right, you can be Christian now.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's funny because the Minneapolis Miracle game, my second daughter had been born like 2 or 3 weeks before that. And the whole game, I was sitting on the couch watching the game, holding my daughter. It was awesome. And then towards the end of the game, it was looking pretty grim. Yeah. So my wife just kind of came up and like gracefully took my daughter out of my hands because I was looking pissed. Yeah. And then the miracle happened, and my wife kind of looked at me. I didn't react. I was stunned. She looked at me. She's like, was that a good thing? I was like, yes. And then I like broke out of my trance and was jumping around like everybody else.
Hell yeah. I love that.
That's great.
Well, speaking of kids, Tyler, I know you're a dad. Jared, I don't think you have any kids. Maybe someday.
Yeah. Well, I don't know of.
One deceased goldfish.
Yeah, one goldfish.
Oh yeah.
R.I.P. Finn.
Oh, sorry, man. Well, being a dad and a Vikings fan, do you ever feel guilty? Because I do feel guilty about bringing your kids into this fandom.
Not for a single second. I feel zero guilt. It builds character being a Vikings fan. You need to know that life will let you down, and there's nothing you can do about it. I think it's a great lesson. No, I'm fully ingratiating them into the Vikings fandom. They've both had jerseys since the day they were born. So
there you go. That's awesome. Yeah, I go back and forth on if I should feel bad or not. One of my favorite memories of my kids being Vikings fans is 2 or 3 seasons ago, I was watching with my oldest daughter, who was like, I don't know, 6 or so at the time, 5 or 6. And the game was winding down. The Vikings, it was close, but they were not going to win. And it became very apparent. And she just looked at me and was like, are they going to lose? And the tears started.
Oh, no.
Like, yes, she did it.
Oh, that's great.
So it made the loss feel a little bit less terrible, but also
it's good for you. Now you have someone to share the pain with. You can console them, and that's healing for you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I also bribe my kids. Every Vikings win, we get ice cream as a family. So I'll watch the game and be like, "Oh, are they winning? Because we get ice cream."
You're Pavlov's belling them with Vikings wins.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because right now they care more about the ice cream, but someday they will care more about the team.
Someday they're gonna be like, "Dad, get the ice cream out of my face! I'm trying to watch."
I don't care about the ice cream.
Yep. My kids, they're not. The oldest one isn't. He cares that the Vikings are on, but he doesn't really get it. The younger one, somehow he cares more. To him, every football game, no matter what football is on TV, it's a Vikings game, and he knows that he should watch it because it's the Vikings.
That's awesome.
So we're watching the college football playoffs, and he's like, "Dad, Vikings?" And I was like, "Yep, buddy." And he sits down and he watches it all.
There you go. That's awesome. So what was it like golfing at US Bank?
Really interesting. Like, so that I made this comment to Ryan and Jake when we were there. I've been to the bank probably 15 to 20-ish times now since it opened. Just go to at least one game a year, some events, concerts, whatever. It was so strange to see it relatively empty.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
We're in the stadium, and I'm used to 30,000 plus people being in it, and there were maybe 1,000. And so it was strangely quiet, and it almost felt like a different building, and not in a bad way. It was, you could really take in more stuff. You could see details that you wouldn't notice when it's filled with humans. But it was really interesting. The golf event they put on was really cool, and I recommend to anyone, if you get the chance to do it. You started in the Polaris Club, and then you literally just went up and down the stand. So you would hit from top of the lower bowl to the middle row to you're as high up as you can go, and it was really neat. So if anyone gets a chance to do it, I'd recommend doing it.
I think that same company is doing the same event at Target Field.
Yeah, they did one there a couple years ago too, I think.
Yeah. I think it's coming up sometime in the next couple of months they're doing it there too. So for me, it's like a 6-hour drive to get up to the cities. But for stuff like that, obviously for Vikings games, it's a worth it drive for us. But yeah, I think I might have to check out that Target Field event that they put on. It seemed really cool. Yeah, where were you at in the stadium when you recorded that podcast talking about it?
So we were in that Polaris Club.
Okay.
So it wasn't the Polaris. It was the casino.
Oh, the Mystic
Lake. The Mystic Lake Club.
Like right when you walk in, it'll be to the left.
Yep. So we're in there, and that's where they house the event. So that's where like all the food is, and then the sponsor booths and stuff. And then that's typically blocked off, like behind the booths. The stadium was, but they knew we were coming to do a podcast, so they let us into there so we could have a view of the field. It was super cool. It probably be the one and only time I'm ever in the Mystic Lake Club because I can't afford that shit. So I sat there. I was the only one kind of soaking it in. Was like, hey, this is pretty sweet. Is there any coasters I can steal? What's going on here?
That's awesome. Yeah, that's cool. I definitely, if they do that event at US Bank again, I'm definitely signing up for that one.
Yeah, I think you should. If you have fun.
Yeah. All right, let's keep it on golf for a little bit. I haven't really mentioned it, but breakfast ball, you guys are focused on golf and Midwest stuff. So we'll keep it on golf a little bit. Hypothetical question for you guys, both of you. You can pick any 3 current or former Vikings to play a round of golf with. Who is it and why?
Okay, one more question about the rule. Do they have to be alive?
Nope. And if they are alive, so if it's Fran Tarkenton, it can be like playing days Fran Tarkenton.
Prime. Okay.
Yeah, it can. Yeah.
That's just gonna make me double down on my picks. Jared, you go ahead.
I'll do Roman Reigns.
He's a Viking?
Yeah, he was a Viking.
He was.
Shit. Yeah. I knew Lesnar was. I didn't know Roman Reigns was.
And that's my second pick. Let's do Lesnar.
Okay.
Lesnar. And let's see. Let's do Randy Moss.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. Yeah, classic. So I'm going with my 2 favorite Vikings of all time, Chris Carter and Harrison. So both of them, I don't know if Harrison can golf at all. I know Chris Carter can.
Harrison Smith?
Yeah, Harrison Smith. Sorry.
Yeah, I think he's
not Harrison Phillips. Yeah, he's not one of my favorite Vikings. No offense to you, Harrison Phillips, if you're listening.
He's totally listening.
Yeah, I'm sure he is. You kind of look like Harrison Phillips a little bit. So yeah, go Chris Carter, Harrison Smith, and Bud Grant.
Ooh,
Bud Grant he's super cool at golf with him.
Yeah.
And I would take him. I know the course I would even take him to. There's this course in Minnesota, super way up north. It's called Three Bears. It's in the middle of nowhere. The clubhouse is just this shed. There's no tee times. You show up, and it's an honor system. If you want to get some beers or some pops out of the clubhouse, you leave money there, and you just golf as many times as you want, and then you drive down the road to the bar and pay for your round at the bar.
That's
so
awesome.
Middle of nowhere. I've seen bears out there. I've seen deer out there. So I think Bud would love that as well.
That's awesome. That sounds cool. Yeah, I think mine, my first one would be Adam Thielen. I think he's a golfer. So that would almost take, I'm terrible at golf. I like it, but I'm terrible. But
you don't gotta be good to like it. Yeah.
It doesn't even matter. Like, I'm going to get beat anyways, so might as well get beat by somebody who's super good. I liked the Harrison Smith. So I'm adding him in mine. And then Jared Allen, he just seems like a good time.
Yeah,
so
he would be a good time. He'd be the guy that rolls the cart.
That.
You want another personal story?
Oh, do you have a Jared Allen story?
No, I have a Thielen story for you, though.
Oh, let's go. That's even better.
Everyone knows this. They blew it up in the media coverage. Adam Thielen, Detroit Lakes guy.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm kidding. Did
you know that he was almost a dentist too?
Really?
Did you know that he only had one college offer?
That's insane. Was he he was undrafted too, wasn't he?
He was.
Nobody knows this.
Yes. So yeah, Adam Thielen, Detroit Lakes boy. I went to school in DL for the first till third grade, and then I moved to the next town over, Frazee. But one of my friends growing up, so this might get a little convoluted. My freshman year of college, after my freshman year, played football in college, D3. After my freshman year, my friend, his older brother, is best friends with Adam Thielen. They were best men in each other's wedding.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Every year on the 4th of July, that family plays a 7-on-7 football game on the Detroit Lake High School field. And they always bring one buddy with. So I was my buddy's plus one. And Thielen, this was the year that he was on the practice squad for the Vikings.
Oh, okay. Still.
His older brother's plus one. And they decided that in this family game of 7-on-7, that since I'm a college football player, granted it's D3 and I didn't sniff the field once, that I should get put on the professional football player because we're the two highest levels of football player on this team. And he was super cool about it. He could have done whatever he wanted. He could have scored on command, but he was cool about it. But it was still cool to say that I've played with an NFL record holder on a high school field.
Yeah, that's crazy. And in the midst of we should just add that to the lore of Adam Thielen. When you mentioned he's from the hometown kid, tryout player, was practicing against some D3 college football player.
Yeah, that really gave him you can't deny that after that game, he did get elevated to the 53.
Yeah, you can take some credit for everything that happened in his career after that game. So congrats, man. That's awesome.
Thank you. I don't know why I haven't been doing this the whole time.
You absolutely need to. Wear a t-shirt like I made Adam Thielen who he is.
I'm going to make You're Welcome Adam shirts.
That's awesome. Tyler, you went to the draft party recently, didn't you?
Yeah, me and Grandpa Dave.
That's awesome. How was that?
That was cool. It was very cool. That was another one where it was a completely different style of event that I've ever been to at the bank. They had the entire field was just filled with like games and activities and whatnot. And then they had like some of the lower bowls open up for sitting, but most of it, everybody was on the field. And then they had a stage set up on what would be, I think, the west end zone.
Okay.
Opposite of the main entrance. And where they were doing, like, PA was doing his radio show live at the draft, so that was pumped throughout the whole stadium, which was super cool. And all the events were really sweet, and everyone there was having a blast.
That's cool. Well, and the whole vibe of the draft too. I think everybody guessed that they were going to trade the next 100 years of first round picks to get. But then they didn't have to do that. What was it like in that time where it's like, oh, I guess the Patriots are taking Drake May. What's going to happen? Was it kind of tense in there?
It was super tense. It was weird. So again, to the atmosphere, this was the first time I'd ever been at an event at the bank where there's a lot of people. And for sure, everybody there was Vikings fans. Like, you can go to a Vikings game, and there's going to be some of the opponent's fans there. Everybody in that building was a Vikings fan. So we all got quiet at the same time. We all got excited at the same time. just the energy matched, and you could like feel the waves of everybody there, and it was kind of neat. Yeah, after Drake May went, there was like a lot of looking around. I'm like, all right, we're still what? We were 5, 6, 7 picks away, and everyone's like, we're on the clock. We're on the clock for the next hour and a half. You never know what's going to happen.
And then later on, Dallas Turner, they traded up again. I didn't expect that to happen at all.
No, that was actually the most surprised anyone was at the entire draft party. So for the JJ pick, I kind of messed up a little bit. So they had this thing there called the Vikings rummage sale, and I had no idea what it was going to be. I assumed it was just going to be like a discounted merch tent.
Sure, yeah.
But I wanted to check that out, so I went in there at like pick 6, I believe. Just thought it'd be quick in and out. So you go through a tunnel where they run out, actually. Then you go down a hallway, you're following these signs. All of a sudden, we're in the locker room.
What?
And so we go into the locker room, and it's an actual rummage sale where they have white folded tables just filled with gear that the players used. So they had a shitload of like game-worn jerseys where they like took the names off. They had game pants. They had the shorts and like the compression shirts that they would wear for like Shells Day and walkthroughs and stuff. Like, so it was just all used stuff that the Vikings were trying to get rid of. And so instead of me just doing my planned quick check it out and then leave, I got sucked in. I'm texting Jared like, you want a jersey, dude? There's a whole bunch of jerseys. And so I'm in full shop mode. And then all these other people in the locker room are like, oh shit, we traded up.
Oh,
I just 4 picks disappeared while I was just skimming through jerseys. And they took the names off the back, but it said the year on the tag. So I had rosters open so I could figure out whose jerseys they were. And so I just lost track of time. And then all of a sudden they're like, hey, we traded up. And so I grabbed my jerseys really quick. I run to the checkout thing, which is at another tunnel to get back onto the field. And we're on the clock. And I asked the lady, I was like, hey, can I just run to the tunnel and watch the pick quick while you ring this up? She said, yeah, go ahead. And so I run out there. We draft JJ. Everyone erupts. It's awesome. And I go back, and the lady's like, hey, surprise. After the first pick, every jersey's $5. So
what?
I got 4 Vikings jerseys for $20, and then the shirts were $5. So we're good to go. It was great.
So waiting really saved you probably a good crap ton of money.
Yeah, so I ended up we got 4 jerseys for $80. I spent $83 something. The shirt was $3. I spent $83 to get 4 jerseys and a shirt, so it was sweet.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Whose jerseys did you get? Do you remember?
The only cool one, Jake wanted a 98 jersey because that's the year he was born. So I just grabbed the first 98 jersey, and it ended up being Linval.
Nice. That's so cool.
And then there was
I think Noah had a Gerald Hodges jersey, right?
Yep, okay. Gerald Hodges. He was the only other name I recognized. Then I got a 16 from like 2019, and it was a punter that wore it in a preseason game. Who did you get, Jared?
I got Mac Brown. He was a cornerback. He played like 1 or 2 games in like 2017.
Huh, okay.
Literally it, yeah. And that dirt
jersey. That's still really cool.
Yeah. So it was super sweet. But then the like I said, the most hype the bank got was when out of nowhere we traded up to go get Turner. So because nobody saw that coming, we were all just sitting there. That's when everyone was in the beer line. Everyone was checking out the games. No one was paying really any attention. And then they announced that, and PA lost his shit. It was awesome.
He could make me excited to watch somebody paint a wall. If he described it right, like, yeah, I could listen to that guy any day doing anything. Yeah, I can imagine how crazy that building was when they traded up. And when they got JJ without having to trade the next 2 or 3 years worth of first round picks, like that's crazy too.
Yeah, it was. I think there was a ton of signs that said "Let Kwesi cook." I think he cooked.
Yeah. I'm more and more every time Kwesi does something. I like him a little bit more.
Well, he set the bar so low his first draft. Nowhere to go but up.
Lewis Seen, he might not even make the team this year. Like, that's crazy.
No.
All right, Tyler, what's worse? Watching a loss in the NFC Championship game or breaking your leg?
Well, I cried way more when we lost the NFC Championship game in 2017. So there's your answer. And that honestly, I'm only broken leg. It's 4 to 6 weeks in a boot. If to win the NFC Championship game, I would go 6 months in a boot.
Yeah,
easy trade.
Just break both my legs if I can guarantee, one Super Bowl win. Like, let's go.
Yeah, no doubt. The NFC Championship was worse. I remember. Well, I don't remember because I consumed a lot of beverages after that loss, and I looked at my outgoing phone calls the next day, and I had a 30-minute phone call to my grandpa that I didn't remember, and then I called him again, and I was like, "What happened? Why did I call you?" He's like, "You were not okay."
Good old Grandpa Dave. Well, Skol Hoppers, if you don't know what we're talking about, Tyler talks a lot about breaking his leg in really both YouBetcha Radio and the Double Bogey Show from past week. So go check that out. Good listens overall.
Yeah, it's kind of it's almost relevant to this podcast. Another good football story for you. Go check it out.
Yeah, for sure. I liked it. Some good backyard football, and then you rallied. You didn't leave. You were tough.
Matt Stafford performance. People are saying.
Do that video of Stafford like coming out of the game, coming back in. It's like 3 minutes of
cool.
He's just an Iron Man. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I picture when I hear the story of you coming back and throwing the game-winning touchdown after that.
Game tying, technically.
Oh,
we're getting into semantics, but Jared was there. He said he was the one. I think he said this was better than Matt Stafford.
Oh yeah, 5-10 years from now, it'll be a game-winning touchdown.
Yeah, we'll pull the security camera footage, and they'll do a ESPN 30 for 30 on it. I'm sure.
Well, and it's your story. It can be a game-winning touchdown. It can be like you can have thrown it and caught it if you want to tell that story.
Yes. Yeah. All I know is a ding on the leg is a hell of a long way from the heart.
Yeah, and the Vikings, they know how to break our hearts. So
yes, they do. Oh, yeah. Yes, they do.
All right, guys. So I guess to close it out a little bit, I've got some rapid fire questions for you, and just don't think too much. Both of you, I want you to answer if you're all right with it. How many starts do you think Sam Darnold's going to have this season for the Vikes?
Unpopular opinion, 17.
Okay, I agree with you. Not.
I would say 12.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. How many starts for JJ?
0.
Okay. All right.
I guess 5.
Okay. Because in theory, if Sam Darnold doesn't start, JJ won't be the only other quarterback on the roster. So if he's not ready, I don't think you throw him in there before he's ready.
Yeah, I would really like Darnold to start every game because even if like some of the pros are predicting we start 0-6, I know all of Vikings fandom is going to be screaming for JJ to start. I do not want it. We cannot ruin this kid.
Exactly.
We can't.
It's funny.
Yeah, we can't throw him into the fire if he's not ready. I don't want his career to get cut short because we threw him out there when he wasn't ready.
Yep. Just a few minutes ago, with Evan and I talking on this podcast, I said that we can't Christian ponder JJ. Mm-hmm. We can't throw him in just because we want him in, and Donovan McNabb or Sam Darnold's not getting the job done. You protect JJ. Right.
I think Darnold will be a little better than the Vikings McNabb. Actually, at least I hope so.
I think I would be a little bit better than the Vikings McNabb.
I have a really, really sneaky suspicion that Darnold might have himself a Case Keenum year.
Oh, how about a Baker Mayfield year from last year?
Yeah, and I hope that doesn't sway Kwesi or O'Connell to keep him.
Well, hey,
what if he just goes and gets a bag for like the Steelers? I don't know. They get a new quarterback every other week.
Yeah, that's true. But what if the unthinkable happens and Darnold starts every game, they make the playoffs, and they do something magical? What if Darnold brought this team to a Super Bowl? What do you do? I'm not saying it's going to happen, but what do you do?
I give him another 1 year.
If
pump him up
if
to
he wins the Super Bowl, somebody's giving him at least a 3-year, $100 million contract.
Yeah, if I'm the Vikings, though, that's all I'm offering him is like, hey, here's another 1 year. You're not the quarterback of the future. You know that.
What if he does it, though? Like, what if, again, I'm not predicting it, what if Darnold throws like 6,000 yards and like 70 touchdowns and he looks like Sam Bradford did against the Saints that 1 year to open up the season? Like, what if he's just perfect? You got to keep him, right?
It's a good problem to have.
It is. It's a great problem to have. And me, the cynic right now, is saying, nope. He's not the quarterback. He's too old. He's too old. We have this rookie that we're gonna be paying pennies for the next 5 years. We got to take advantage of that. We can build a roster around him. We can't build a roster spending all our cap space on Sam Darnold if he wins a Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. And again, I think, that would be a beautiful problem to have a year from now. And I don't think that'll happen. But man, if he won you the Super Bowl, I don't know. I don't know the right answer. I think you got to go with it.
I would be forever in his debt. That's all we want, though. All we want is one.
Just give me one Super Bowl. That's all I want. Okay, well, we kind of derailed those rapid fires, but I got a few more for you. Justin Jefferson, how many yards and touchdowns does he get this year?
Okay, I don't think he has a deal done during training camp. Yet. I think he holds out during training camp, and he starts the season off a little slow because he hasn't been in training camp. Any of the preseason stuff. So I think it's down from the last 2 years, but still very good. I'm going 1,500 yards, 7 touchdowns.
Yeah. Okay. I would go about 1,300, about 9 touchdowns. It always feels like a single-digit touchdown year for him.
Yeah. Okay. I think Addison is going to continue being deep ball touchdown guy, and Hawkinson's the threat in the red zone. So I think touchdowns are lower.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and in theory, you're going to get at least hopefully more rushing touchdowns this year than the Vikings had last year. So
could we get less?
How many do we have?
I don't know. I know Madison didn't have any rushing touchdowns, did he? Or did he have like 2?
I think he got 1, and it was like week 14 or some shit. Unbelievable.
Ty Chandler had more rushing touchdowns.
Yeah. Chandler did for sure have 1 before Madison did.
Oh yeah. I think everybody did. Cam Akers did.
Yeah. Cousins probably did. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that'll cut into any receiving touchdowns for everybody because hopefully you get a little bit more from the run game with Aaron Jones this year. Mm-hmm. Are there any surprise cuts before the season starts? Anybody that we don't think is going to be cut, or maybe you could see it, but it'd still be a surprise?
I think Andrew Booth. I think there might be a shot he gets cut.
Okay,
I could see that. I think Tonyan's going to get cut. I don't see him making the team.
Tonyan?
Yeah, Tonyan.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, there seems to be a lot of hype around him right now. Just the fun new signing, but I think at best he's even before Hawkinson comes back, he's fighting for that third tight end job.
Right.
And then for sure when Hawkinson comes back, some tight end's probably going to get cut. So.
Well, Johnny Munt is going to flash in preseason.
He's the best third string tight end in the league.
We joke about that all the time. One time in a press conference, Kevin O'Connell says, Johnny Munt is the best tight end 3 in the whole league. So we geek out every time Munt's on the field.
All right. There's another T-shirt for you. Put Munt on the back and then best tight end 3 in the league.
Yes, best TE3.
TE3.
I don't know. I don't know about any surprise cuts. I do think, and not before the season, but I think there's a chance we get a Harry the Hitman retirement mid-season.
That was going to be mine. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think they would ever not put him on the roster, but I wouldn't be surprised if by like week 8 he retires. Because he's getting old and he knows it, and I'm sure his body is wrecked.
Yeah.
He's playing on fumes, I think, so.
Yeah.
But he's still got that fire and that passion to be in there.
Yep.
And he's not bad yet. He's just
a little slower.
They've already said they're going to like almost have him on a pitch count, kind of manage how much he's on the field. I kind of think of, who was it, Terrence Newman a handful of years ago in training camp. He like weirdly retired and then joined the coaching staff.
Yeah.
But I think it was one of those like, I'm getting old. I still want to be around the team, but I'm not going to make the roster. So let's let's retire before I get cut.
Yeah, which I don't think is a bad move for him.
Yeah,
I wouldn't, and me as a fan, I've loved Harry since the day we drafted him.
Me too.
I think that would be a good way to go out.
Yeah.
I would hate to see him finish the season. We don't re-sign him, and then he ends his career in like Tampa or something. Like I would.
Yeah. Well, he's already had the chance to do that, right? Like he's already taken pretty substantial pay cuts just to stick around. So I feel like unless some other team offered him a huge bag, he's not really going to play anywhere else because he would have already done that.
I hope not.
Exactly. But Jared, I think you're onto something. I think that defensive back room, there might be a surprise cut there, whether it's Booth or a Caleb Evans or somebody like that. I guess Harry's in that DB room too. So yeah, I think that could be where that surprise might come from.
I would like it if Evans got cut because he did not look good the second half of the
year. He's always one that he's terrible, but he'll flash. He'll get like an interception. It's like, oh, maybe this kid's not too bad. Maybe he's figuring it out. But then he's just.
I played with a guy like that in college. He got All-American because he had like 6 picks, but they were all on underthrown balls where he had gotten toasted. Yeah. So his stat line looked decent, but he was a terrible corner.
Yeah. It's remember at week 3 last year against the Chargers, Evans had that bounced off.
Yeah.
And then they would have won the game if he would have held on to that pick.
We had
against the Bengals too. He let that crazy touchdown happen.
Oh, yeah.
We had so many coulda wouldas at the beginning, the first half of the season last year. It's unreal.
The turnovers.
Thus being a Vikings fan and watching everything, and then Kirk breaking his Achilles exploded, and so did our hearts. And here we go. We won 2 games after that.
Yep. Yeah, we had a little bit of the Dobbs magic going on for a little while.
For like 6.
That was so much
6 quarters of football. It was a blast.
And then
constantly listening to Creed.
Yeah, that's like 10 years ago.
Yeah, it does. Feels like a lifetime ago, Jared.
Yeah. All right, guys, what do you think a way too early final record's going to be?
Oh, I'm playing it safe. I'm playing it real safe with my record prediction, 9-8.
Okay.
Everybody always says 9-8.
I know. That's why I prefaced that I'm playing it safe.
For every team. I'm saying just every team. Other than like the Blue Bloods, they say 9-8.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say 9-8.
Oh, Jared.
I'll do 10-7.
Everybody does it. So do I. I'm pretty optimistic. I think there's that huge question mark about the quarterback position, but other than that, I think the team got better everywhere else. I'm going 11 wins. I think they can do it.
Okay. 11-win season I'd be tickled pink.
And the NFC.
Yep.
Yeah, the NFC North. That's one thing we got to take into account. We got better everywhere. So did the rest of the division.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. But I mean, they don't play. I think most of the divisional games are in the last 7 games of the season. So they got a lot of time to figure themselves out and then get good and then go through that gauntlet.
Yeah, we also have a lot of time for all of the Lions players to get hurt.
Or injure themselves in practice.
Yes. Yeah, because Dan Campbell is running full pads 4 days a week.
Yeah. I don't believe in them. I'm really happy they signed Goff to that huge deal because I think it's going to blow up in their face.
Do you buy into the Bears hype?
No, not at all. I don't know why everybody's counting. Yeah, they played fantasy football in free agency, and yeah, Caleb Williams is supposed to be amazing, but so is Trevor Lawrence. He hasn't really done much. So I don't believe in Caleb Williams. I think the Bears last year they were getting all the hype. Remember, Fields was supposed to be a MVP candidate. Now he's second string behind Russell Wilson.
I agree. On paper, they definitely got better on paper, but we've heard this story how many times in our lives. The Bears are the team to beat this year. Then the one year that they were decent when Trubisky took them to win the NFC North, they weren't supposed to be good. So the Bears are just coin flip based off of what the pros are predicting.
Yep. Yeah. I don't believe it. I think the Vikings will either be first or second in the division.
Behind the Packers.
At least a wild card. Yeah, maybe behind the Packers. I hate that Jordan Love is looking decent.
Me too.
Sucks.
All right, guys. Anything you guys want to plug before we wrap up here? Obviously, you betcha everything breakfast ball. What do you guys want to plug?
Hell yeah! I mean, go check out the Double Bogey Show. That's the podcast for breakfast ball. Found where you can find all podcasts. YouBetcha Radio. Jared is the glass man, actively in his seat right now. That is the two of us and two other guys. So, yeah, just check out our podcast. Check out our content. Hope you enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, I definitely listen to everything. I like it a lot. I think Skol hoppers would enjoy it too if for some crazy reason they aren't already following you guys. So if you're not, definitely do it. Really loved having you guys on. Open door if you guys ever want to come back on and vent about the Vikings again. And if not, definitely do the Vikings Corner on your own podcast. Put your foot down, vent about that because we deserve it.
We'll just talk over them.
Exactly.
Jared edits the podcast. We could put it in without him knowing.
Oh, and I can mute this as well.
You can.
Yeah, you guys do that every once in a while. It's been a bit, but you guys like to mute each other. So
yeah, we'll bring it back.
Yeah. All right, guys. Yeah, anytime you feel like venting about the Vikings, open door, just let me know. You can come back on. Really appreciate you coming on today. Thanks for the time. Skol hoppers, check everything out. You betcha. And we'll go from there. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it, Austin.
All right, hey, welcome back. Seems like you had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I'm really jealous that I couldn't join you. But
next time.
Next time.
So yeah, they're good guys. That's a lot of fun. I really like talking to Vikings fans. Where we live, we don't just see Vikings fans everywhere we go. It's still kind of exciting to see a dude like wear a Vikings hat. It's like, hey, Skol. Literally, somebody did that to me today. I was picking my kids up from school wearing a Vikings hat, and somebody's like, Skol Vikings, as I walked by. It's like, yes, that's awesome. So it's always fun to talk.
Listen to the Skol Hop.
Yeah, I should have, right? We should have business cards. Like, here you go. But it is always fun to talk to other Vikings fans, get their story.
You can give out stickers.
Oh, yeah, there we go. So yeah, hopefully we can do that again in the future and you can be a part of it. And yeah, again, good guys. It was a lot of fun.
We would be remiss if we didn't talk about the fact that a different Minnesota sports team has advanced in the playoffs.
What's the rally cry right now? Hootie hoo or whatever they're saying.
I don't even know because I'm not that big of a Timberwolves fan, but the Timberwolves won Game 7 against the Denver Nuggets to move on to the Western Conference Finals against the Dallas Mavericks. That's a big deal in Minnesota sports world.
Absolutely. I'm on record on this podcast of saying about basketball, baseball, hockey, really any other sport that like I'm a diehard Vikings fan. And if I was to have a favorite professional team of any other sport, I'm going to go for the Minnesota teams, but I'm really just like a bandwagon fan. Like earlier on this podcast, we talked about how the Twins had won their first playoff series in however many years, and that was a lot of fun, and that was the most baseball I had ever watched at the time. And Timberwolves, man, I have watched more basketball in the last few weeks than I ever have before and probably ever will again. It's exciting though, because I do claim the Timberwolves as a Minnesota sports fan. I feel like bandwagon and fair weather are different things. I feel like if you and I were like jumping on the Miami Heat fandom, we'd be bandwagon, you know? But if
everybody's doing it, so
right?
I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, or like the Yankees, or like.
But fair weather is they're playing well, so I'm gonna be.
It's still the Timberwolves are technically my NBA team, you know, but I'm a fair weather Timberwolves fan. But you know what? I still have a lot of fun with it, anyways. So
see, the Timberwolves were good in those down years of Vikings football, like the early 2000s, the Love Boat era, and the just really kind of crappy years after like Dante and Randy and Chris Carter.
They had like
they had one or two, but
the Timberwolves have only really had like one good year.
But there was a year or two where it was Kevin Garnett, Latrell Sprewell, and they were in the playoffs and they were really good, and I was probably like 11 or 12 or 13 years old. I don't even remember when exactly.
I think it was 2004. It was literally 20 years ago was the last time they reached the Western Conference Finals.
That's probably it. But since then, they've just been
terrible.
Not good. Not
Even
good.
with like the Kevin Love years and
Yep.
most of Cat's career, they've been terrible, which adds to me not being interested. Like, if the Vikings are terrible for 5 years straight, I'm still going to watch every game. But I'm just not a huge basketball fan. But I'm super, super excited. Let's go. Like,
Anthony
I hope
Edwards
they go on.
has made the difference. I think he's the key acquisition, and I'm hopeful.
Yeah.
That, I mean, they beat the defending champs.
Yeah, and they were down at one point. When we were recording this, the game was last night. They were down at one point in the third quarter by 20 points. And they came back and won.
There was a timeout because I fell asleep, admittedly. I started watching the game, but I was so dead tired. I fell asleep, and I woke up and I watched the highlights, and there was a timeout that took place in the third quarter, early in the third quarter, and that must have been like around the time they were down by 20. I think something was said in that timeout. I don't know who said it. I don't know what was said, but that was the turning point. It was early in the third quarter, or like just before halfway through the third quarter. It was still early on in the second half, and that was the turning point. Just based on my kind of quick review of the highlights that happened after I fell asleep. I saw them take a timeout, and then all of a sudden it was all Timberwolves from there.
So I hope they're not gassed, because, I mean, to win a championship, they have 2 more series ahead of them. At least 8 more games. Definitely 8 more wins. I hope they still have some left in the tank. It'll be really fun to watch. And at least we got 4 more games of excitement to watch.
This might push us a little longer than we're supposed to go, but should the NBA play 7-game series in the playoffs like baseball? Because baseball, they'll play the play-in games are only 1 game, which I think is weird.
It's like game 163 or whatever they call it. That's relatively new though in the last handful of years.
But they don't play a full series for those. They just play a single game to get into the playoffs, which I think is interesting. And then it's, as far as I remember, a 7-game series from.
Is it 7 all the way? I thought baseball did like a
maybe
5,
a wild card was a 5
7 or something. I don't know.
Something like that.
I'm not the guy to ask about baseball,
but being gassed after one series, like I could see the Timberwolves being really tired, and I don't know much about their injury situation right now after 7 games. But
me either.
To play 7 games and to play your heart out for 7 games, and to play Game 7 on the road in Denver at altitude, that's.
I think the altitude thing is a little overblown.
Maybe.
I say that as someone who is very obviously not an athlete, not a professional athlete, and I've never played at altitude.
I went to Colorado a couple of years ago, and I tried to run a mile, and I run quite a bit. It's tough.
All right, maybe.
It's hard.
Okay,
but I can't speak for playing indoors. Maybe they have some.
I don't know. That might be a little crazy too. Either way, it's not the Metrodome where they pressurize it.
Right.
Did you ever open the wrong door in the Metrodome?
No, but I remember walking through the doors of the Metrodome and feeling like I got sucked in.
My first Vikings game, my dad and I were trying to leave, and we just went out a door, and it was like very obviously like a pressure door, and we were getting yelled at as we were walking out, and we were basically thrown out. Like the pressure just like
don't let the door hit you.
We
ended
up being okay, but it was jarring to be like sucked out of that thing. Anyways.
Well, I think that the NBA might reconsider 7 games.
The money, though, I don't think they ever will.
The money, whatever, dude.
It's if any league is concerned about the money, it's the NBA.
That's probably true.
Yeah. But yeah, either way, it's exciting to watch. I hope they win the championship. Then at least maybe that takes the monkey off the back for every other Minnesota sports team, because the last championship Minnesota sports has won was the Lynx, and. I don't want to isolate anybody. But.
It has seemed like in men's sports, not to be exclusive,
sure,
championships have kind of moved like kind of in geographic centers a little bit. And I would have to go back and do some research to prove this, but like like I feel like Tampa Bay has won some championships in several sports, and Kansas City has won some championships in several sports.
The Boston area was notorious for a few years there. You
got New England, and you had the Celtics, and you had the Red Sox. I'd have to go do some research. I'd have to really compile some stuff. But
what you're saying is this is our time, Ev. Minnesota is about to go on a tear and just win everything.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
A la our high school just before we started going there, the year that they won everything.
They won a lot of stuff the year, our 8th grade year.
Yeah.
And they won a lot of stuff while we were in high school.
Yeah.
And they haven't won a lot since.
And that's for the 3 people that know where we went to high school. So shout out Mr. Spires. Yeah. Timberwolves, they're fun. Hopefully the Twins keep going. They were fun for a minute and kind of cooled down, but
hey, the baseball season is still very young.
Yeah,
so.
I have a joke with a coworker of mine that the 1987 baseball season is almost halfway done. They just keep playing baseball forever and ever and ever.
Well, it's been a fun episode.
It's been a long one, a fun one, a lot of good talkers. Hopefully we get to talk to the YouBetcha guys again. That was a lot of fun.
Good beer, too.
Yes.
And your first Ctrl Alt beer.
Yes, I've seen this beer at our favorite Devil's Glen Hy-Vee. I've seen it a lot. I've just never jumped into and tried it. But it's definitely one, if you like ambers and you like to crush beers a ton, because ambers have they're notoriously a little
range.
But usually they're a little bit higher. Like you're not throwing a ton of ambers back. This one, they say is 4.6.
Yeah.
So you can very much enjoy a lot of the. You'll get full before you get embarrassingly drunk off of these. That's not a challenge. Don't try to do that, guys. But yeah, maybe that's why I've never grabbed it, because I want a little bit more punch. But man, this flavor, this beer, everything about it, fantastic.
Is that what you look for?
I do pay attention to that. It's not the deciding factor, but I like to be in that 6-ish range. Now, if it's like a 9%er, that's a little high for me, for a beer, just to throw a few back. But if it's like a 3%er, I'm probably not going to try it on purpose.
That's just NA beer at that point.
Yeah, I could have it. I'll make a kombucha tea or something if I want something like that. But
well, all in all, I like the Ctrl Alt beer.
Yes, I'm surprised at how much I like it. I will have it again. SingleSpeed, I can't think of anything I don't like from them. Agreed. You just keep hitting, and it's nostalgic for us. Anything with that logo, the SingleSpeed logo, I'm going to grab. I know you are too, so thank you for bringing this. This was really good. Yeah,
I hope you enjoyed my little poem / riddle.
I'm not joking. I want it on the back of a shirt. I need it, with the front of the shirt being this Ctrl Alt beer. SingleSpeed, talk to us. We'll play ball. Let's make some shirts.
We're open to some edits.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. No, I think it's perfect just the way it is.
All right. Well, good beer, good show.
Best episode yet. Skol.
Hey Vikings fans, Evan here from the Skol Hop, and we just wanted to say thank you again so much for listening to the Skol Hop, and we also wanted to take one more opportunity to let you know that this episode of the Skol Hop has been brought to you by Big Top Ventures. If you're considering taking an all-inclusive trip to either Mexico or Jamaica, reach out to our friends at Big Top Ventures at bigtopventuresllc@gmail.com. Once again, that's bigtopventuresllc@gmail.com. You can get the lowest rate possible on several all-inclusive resorts throughout the region. Big Top Ventures. Step right up to your next big adventure. And thanks again for listening to the Skol Hop. Skol.